It's now live.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Good evening, councillors, and welcome to all the members of the public watching online. Before we start the meeting, can I ask the council's chaplain, the Right Reverend Paul Edmondson, to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got two duties this evening. The first is to introduce a minute's silence. It's an honour and privilege to call to mind our former mayor, and from 2010, our loyal town councillor, Tessa Bates. She died on the 18th of June. Her term of office as the Right Worshipful the Mayor of Stratford-upon-Avon was 2015 to 2016, during the 400th anniversary of our greatest son, William Shakespeare. Those Shakespeare birthday celebrations have left a long memory, with their jazz funeral and midnight procession to Shakespeare's grave and the many special guests. London tried to pull our limelight, but didn't manage to do so. The world's media was in our town, and Tessa was representing us at the highest level. In honouring her memory, we also honour her widower Charles, who himself was twice mayor, in 1987 to 1988, and in 1996 to 1997. During his second term of office, he and Tessa welcomed the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh and spent the day with them to mark 800 years of our being made a town. We join together now in a minute's silence with our heartfelt condolences to Charles and all the family, and to honour the memory of Tessa Bates. And now our thought for the day. Look at the generations of old and see. Our town, our region, and our country are being called into the summer light. The lockdown is eased, but crucial restrictions are still in place. We're not the first generation to encounter a pandemic. We read in our parish register that on the 11th of July, 1564, the plague struck our town. Baby Shakespeare, who was just over 3 months old, was lucky to survive. Look at the generations of old and see. They too knew what it meant to stay at home and to socially distance. But even without a severe risk of plague, 32% of Stratford children died before they were 16. We're here because of those who have gone before us. We walk through our town streets and we are reminded of those generations of old. As the town council of Stratford-upon-Avon, you can all take heart in those generations of old who trusted in each other for the betterment of the future, who remained steadfast and hopeful. Look at the generations of old and see the former mayors, the former town councillors, and know that we find our strength in their good examples. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Paul, for those words. If we move on to the full agenda then, and item agenda 1 is to accept apologies for absence. Town Clerk, are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we've had apologies from Councillor Mackenzie and Councillor Wall.
Thank you. Does anybody have any declarations of interest on items on the agenda? Can't see any hands raised, so I assume none. In which case, item 3, to receive written requests for dispensation for disclosable pecuniary interests. Town Clerk, have you received any written requests? No, in which case you don't need to grant any. Item 5, public participation. Do we have any members of the public who've registered to speak? No. In which case, on to item 6. And this is for me to ask for approval of the draft open minutes of the Town Council meeting held on the 26th of May 2020. I beg to move. Has anybody got any questions or issues arising from the minutes? Can we just vote yes then, please? Green button just to confirm your acceptance of the minutes. Thank you. I can see everybody. Thank you. In which case,
Mr. Mayor, may I append your signature to the minutes then?
I had remembered to ask you, Town Clerk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, append my signature. Yes, please. Right, item 7, to approve the open minutes of the Planning Consultative Committee meetings.
May I say something? May I speak, please? It actually shows I wasn't at the meeting, the agenda, not on it. But when I know I went, so I double checked on YouTube, the council website for that meeting. And there I am quite clearly at the meeting. So I will request, it doesn't affect, there are no close votes. It doesn't affect anything, just for the accuracy of the record. I would like that to be amended, please.
Councillor Dyer, you're referring to the Town Council meeting on the 26th?
I'm referring to the Planning Consultative Committee.
Right. Well, can we just, yes, can we just wait and Councillor Fradgley will
Beg your
speak
pardon,
first?
I
Okay.
jumped by mistake, I missed one.
In which case, can I ask Councillor Ian Fradgley to present the open minutes of the Planning Consultative Committee meeting? Can you unmute, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to present the minutes of the planning meeting of the 2nd of June, minutes 211 to 226. For the 23rd of June, minutes 227 to 241. And the 7th of July, minutes 242 to 257. I beg to move. What I'd like to say to Councillor Dyer is I apologise if his name has been missed off the minutes, because obviously it's very important that we know who has actually attended the meeting, because they're the people that are making the decisions. And we might want to know that one day. So if I may, I will ask the committee clerk for planning to have a look at this. And if it's okay by you, Mr. Bear, we will amend the minutes.
Of course, there were no close votes, so it made no difference to anything. But if you want to see proof, look at that meeting on YouTube. That's where you'll see me.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Dyer. Thank you, Councillor Fradgley. Has anybody got any other questions arising from those minutes? In which case, again, if we can vote, please, green ticks. Councillor Rolfe, I can't see at the moment. Thank you. I think that's everybody. Thank you. Item 8 is to adopt the draft open confidential minutes of the Human Resources Committee meeting. Could I call on Councillor Voss to present, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I present the minutes of the HR meeting, which was held on the 30th of June 2020, and I beg to move.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions arising? In which case, can I ask you to vote, please? Thank you. That's everybody. Item number 9, to adopt the draft open minutes of the General Purposes Committee meeting. Councillor Taylor.
I would like to present the minutes of the General Purposes Committee meeting held on the 14th of July 2020. I beg to move.
Thank you. Do we have any issues arising? Can I say that we did have, this was possibly my fault in the meeting, we did, for the question around, relating to the curbing in the cemetery, we did say that there was sufficient money in the budget, and just for clarification, there wasn't enough money in the actual cemetery budget. So for clarification, can we just ask that there is sufficient money in the budget elsewhere, so we would need a environment to transfer it across? Could you, Deputy Town Clerk, can you just confirm that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it's to confirm that there is sufficient funds elsewhere in the Town Council budget, and that a budget environment will be reflected in the management accounts to increase the cemetery general ground maintenance budget by £13,464.
Thank you. I will amend the minutes to say that. Yeah. Otherwise, can we? Otherwise, can we vote, please? Green ticks. Thank you. Item number 10, to adopt the draft open minutes of the Finance and Scrutiny Committee meeting. Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to present the draft open minutes of the Finance and Scrutiny Committee meeting of the 20th of July 2020, and I beg to move.
Thank you. Has anybody got any issues on the minutes? In which case, can I ask you to vote, please? Thank you. Minutes approved. Item 11 is to adopt the draft open minutes of the Mayoral Civic, Ceremonial and Events Committee meeting. Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to present the draft open minutes of the Mayoral Civic, Ceremonial and Events Committee meeting held on the 21st of July, minutes 1 to 16. I beg to move.
Thank you. Councillor Voss, have you got a comment?
I have. I just wanted to clarify under point 13, the recommendation to retain the current civic car until such time as it financially needs to be replaced. I just wanted some clarity on that. Is that because at present there is no use and therefore no financial cost to using the civic car? I just wanted to clarify that point there for the implication that at the moment about money and our intention to replace at some point. It's not clear in the minutes.
Councillor Rolfe, do you want to respond, or?
I'm actually, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Mayor, to defer to Councillor Taylor, because he will explain very succinctly the reason for doing this, as he knows all about cars that I don't.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Councillor Voss, I think at the very last meeting that we had with regards to the car, the decision was made pre-COVID that we would wait until the current car had almost surpassed its lifespan within the organisation before we replaced it. We are currently waiting for the revised lease costs from the previous suppliers that we requested those from. So I think until we have the up-to-date financial implications of the deposits and leases, I think there is nothing else that we can do until we receive that information. And hopefully I will have that tomorrow and I can circulate that to all of you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other issues arising? In which case, can we vote, please? Thank you. Item number 12 is to adapt the notes from the COVID-19 Stratford support meetings. Councillor Rolfe again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Adopt the notes from the COVID-19 Stratford support meetings held on 25th of May, 2nd of June, 9th of June, 16th of June, 23rd of June, 30th of June, 7th of July, 14th of July, and the 21st of July. I beg to move.
Thank you. Any questions arising? In which case, can we vote, please? Thank you. Right, if we move on to item 13.1, which is to receive and approve the financial statements, the annual accounts for the year ending 31st of March 2020. Deputy Town Clerk, can I ask you to lead, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was really just to reflect the financial statements for the year as presented by the council's accountants and reviewed by the internal auditors, show that the deficit for the last financial year was substantially lower than budgeted, but has resulted in a drop in reserves of approximately £80,000 for the year. And I have nothing really further to add other than what was already in the report.
Thank you. Councillor Coles, as chair, the chair of the finance, did you want to say anything before we?
Only really that I wanted to thank the Deputy Town Clerk for his hard work for actually getting these accounts and statements ready in very difficult circumstances, and just perhaps to remind everybody that the landscape going forward is going to be quite different as we need to look at changes to our income and proposed works, and also to thank the town staff also for their hard work, and also just to remind you that obviously there was a large expenditure in the end of the last financial year which we didn't plan for, which was to support the town council's work in the COVID-19 crisis and the actions we took during the lockdown. Just to say, over the country, everywhere, exactly the same as Stratford, parish and town councils stepped up without question to support their communities and to ensure the safety of the vulnerable. And we were later on in April informed by the government in person of a letter from Mr. Jenrick to say that additional funding would be made available to recognise the effort that these councils had made, and that some of that additional funding would be made available to lower tier councils. And I know a lot of my colleagues shared my shock when we were told that the district council did not have an intention in distributing those funds. I don't think there's really anything else to add on this now, but I think we can all say together that as a town council, we would be exactly, stand ready to act in exactly the same way as we did before, should the need arise again.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Alcock, you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Coles, do you have the, I know you won't have the exact figures, that's quite difficult, but do you have a rough idea that you could just share with the council on how much income we have, as a town council, we have lost recently? Looking at the management accounts compared to previous years, it looks quite a substantial number.
Oh, I suspect it is. I mean, we in the accounts that we are about to recommend now, obviously it didn't make a great deal of difference because of the lockdown being so late in the financial year. I suspect that the Deputy Town Clerk would be in a better position to give you an accurate number than I would at this point.
Sorry, just bear with me. I'm just getting the management accounts up.
Whilst the Deputy Town Clerk is just looking for that information, as that's not relevant to the actual recommendation, can I ask that if we've got no other questions, can we vote on the recommendation that we approve the financial statement to give Deputy Town Clerk the chance to look at the figures? So if you can vote on approving the financial statements, please. Councillor Howe, you. Thank you. Right, so that's approved. So, Deputy Town Clerk, have you got a quick answer?
Yes, looking at the management accounts as they will be presented next month, we are currently we're currently 38,000 down on the income from the same time last year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Town Clerk.
Yeah. Okay. Item 13.2 is to receive and approve the annual governance statement and accounting statements of the annual return for the year ending 31st of March 2020. Again, Town Clerk, do you want to add anything before we?
No, in order for the annual governance and accountability return to be submitted to the external auditors and for a period of public, the notice for public rights to review the accounts, in order for that to be published as well, Council now need to formally approve the two statements in the AGAR. The first one is the governance statement. So if we could initially vote on that, and then we move to the accounting return.
Yeah. Okay. So the first vote then is to approve the annual governance statement 2019 to 2020. Thank you. And we now need to do a separate vote to approve the accounting statements 2019 to 2020. Councillor Voss, yes, thank you. Thank you. All done. On to item 13.3. Town Clerk, do you want to lead on this, or?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been quite a comprehensive job looking at all these committees, and I think the questions that are arising from members of the council and also staff members are some of the responsibilities that are in community services, for example, don't quite fit there, or the ones that are in the events and festivals don't quite fit there. There's some sort of disparity as to what the logic was of putting them there. And I would suggest, if I may, that Councillor Howe, who was instrumental in putting this together, actually can give you an update on why they went there. I'm thinking particularly of the Maryland Protocol Committee that had a number of suggestions, including a change of name.
Thank you. Just before I ask Councillor Howe to speak, just to say that the other committees, the finance, the planning and HR, they pretty well accepted their terms of reference without issue, and it's only been the Mayor and Civic Ceremonies and the General Purposes one where there was some element of doubt over which was the appropriate committee for those certain sections to sit in for. So if Councillor Howe could just provide his rationale as he originally put it together.
Before I do that, I think Councillor Rolfe would like to speak.
Okay, Councillor Rolfe.
Yes, I'm sure Councillor Howe is going to explain matters quite succinctly, but may I make a suggestion that that the chairs of both committees and the town clerk and Councillor Howe and the mayor discuss the communities and the Mayor and Civic Ceremonial Committee in separately, if you like. I'm sure we can all come up with ideas of what goes in what, but I think it might be better if we sit round in a smaller group and work out between us how we go forward on this.
Mr. Mayor, may I just say before Councillor Howe comes in, I think what we have to understand is that they are not replicas of what we've already got. So trying to fit things into what was GP to make it neat has not worked, and it's not the intention. I think there is a bit of a, well, what's that got to do with heritage or events, etc. But it has got something to do with it, and that's what really why I want Councillor Howe to explain.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Councillor Howe, I think it would be good for anybody watching, on the basis that we are looking to amend terms of reference for all the committees and rename them, that you give some guidance here.
So I won't stay on this for long, but briefly, I really wanted that committee to have a more holistic view of our kind of our ceremonial and our heritage, and looking at both history and sort of the events that we do in the modern day. And I personally think heritage and events sum that up nicely. I mean, if the members of that committee felt like they needed to add the word civic, then you know, there are also some, you know, how many, you know, how long titled are these committees, but also to have to also have a bit of a commercial slant as well, because, you know, as we've seen, the commercial activities that we undertake as a council contribute massively to our income and allow us to do more work in, you know, in the community at the end of the day. The town, we do let out the town hall commercially, and to take as an example, also providing that as sort of that use of the town hall for free needs to be a decision in line with almost letting it out commercially. That is, you know, that for any day that we're letting it out for free, that is a loss of income. And I know we're all very keen on allowing use of the town hall for free for local organisations, but it'd be nice for those decisions to be made holistically in line with the commercial ventures that we do as well.
Thank you. Just a question of how best we progress this. I'm quite happy to listen to Councillor Rolfe's suggestion that we have a small group just to walk it through. But I think what we should say is that the General Purposes Committee didn't have the opportunity at their meeting. They haven't had the opportunity yet to discuss the terms of reference. So the fact that the new Civic Heritage and Events Committee didn't think it was appropriate for certain sections to sit with them doesn't mean to say that that is a decision, because the decision needs to be a joint decision between the two committees. So I think it's just a question of whether I take the point of the town clerk that we didn't want to try and shoehorn all of the new committees into the old committee structure, that we need to take a wider view. Doesn't mean to say that's going to guide or make any final decisions, but we just need to look at it in the perspective that here is an opportunity to look at something new that's going to be with us for a number of years. So I suggest we take this offline then, and we'll take it back to the chairs of the relevant committees to have an initial discussion. And I think we will need to, there isn't scheduled a general purposes committee meeting before the next town council meeting. So we'll need to schedule one in and take the opportunity to discuss it there.
Mr. Mayor, may I suggest, as it's on the agenda, it looks like the governance and policies panel is going to be reinstigated and until a new committee structure is determined. The chairman of all our committees are on that panel, so it could go there actually, and then come back to council.
In which case, again, I don't think there is a, I mean, we haven't got to that agenda item yet, but assuming that we do appoint the governance and policies panel, and it would be an interim panel because the intention would be that it would be taken down when the full committee structure was agreed later in the year, but there isn't a scheduled meeting of the governance and panels policy. So we need to appoint the members, agree a date for that. And do we want to for that meeting to be before a new general purposes committee meeting? I think we do. So we have the governance and panels one will be first, then the GP to sanction the decision so that we can come back to the next town council meeting with final ratification of the new committee structure. That makes sense? We all, yeah. Were there any other issues arising from the new committee structure discussion and debate? No, in which case can we move, Town Clerk, can you arrange the dates in the calendar for a convenient date? Thank you. Right, so the next item is item number 13.4, which is to appoint members to the governance and policies panel. I'll just check that. The proposed chairs are listed in your papers. We do have the opportunity for an additional councillor to be a floater. Do we have any councillor who wishes to put themselves forward or be nominated to be that representative on the panel? Councillor Alcock?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to put my name forward for the floating position. Though that makes me sound a little bit like Pennywise the Clown, but yes, if I could be the additional councillor on that committee, please.
Town Clerk, do we need a nomination, seconder and a vote on that, or yes, we do. Right, does anybody like to nominate and or second? Councillor Rolfe to nominate, Councillor Cleave to second. Thank you. All those in favour, can you just do a green tick, please? Thank you. That's agreed. In which case, Town Clerk, if we just arrange a meeting for a convenient time. Thank you. Sorry, can I just check? Do we do the chair? Do we do the chair and deputy chair of that committee at the first meeting, as opposed to, or do we do that now at the first meeting? Yes, thank you. Okay, item number 13.
Councillor Howe wanted to speak, I think.
Sorry,
can I just make sure that I'm invited to that first session of that committee to discuss those changes?
Yes, I'm sure that'll be fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 13.5. Sorry,
it's a high five.
13.5. Yes, sorry, I was reading two things at the same time there. Sorry. Right, is to receive an update on the temporary town centre measures for COVID-19. Can I ask Councillor Rolfe to lead on this, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Where do I start? I don't propose to give you the entire story that I sent you by email, but as you know, a survey went out to all businesses on Friday afternoon, and the result of the survey, the survey was extended by 24 hours until 1 o'clock today. And the survey was for either everything in the town to completely go, or for the revised scheme that was sent to you all to go in place. And the result of the survey is that 128 businesses voted in favour of the revised scheme, and 97 businesses voted for everything to go. Now, whilst I think some of us here are really quite excited about the result of that, it's not necessarily the case that what we voted for, what the business voted for will happen. We hope it will happen, but of course it has to go through the hoops a little bit. Councillor Izzy Seckham is away at the moment, so it's being looked at by Councillor Peter Butlin at the County Council. And obviously discussions with the engineers and the highways officers to look at what happens next. It is likely to go ahead, and a traffic regulation order will be put forward, and that's an emergency traffic regulation order which takes 7 days. And we hope that it will all be in place, cross fingers and toes, in the next 10 days. I would like to thank, there's been certain councillors, Councillor Jenny Fradgley and Councillor Kevin Taylor have worked incredibly hard on this. And I must admit that it's taken up 25 hours a day of my time for the last 2 weeks. But I think, thankfully, I think we have the result that we all wanted to have. I would like to ask the Town Council to endorse that the Town Clerk puts forward a statement for the press that will go along with the County Council and the District Council, and that will be done first thing in the morning when the Town Clerk meets with Julie Lewis from the District Council. I think it's along the lines of, I think we all welcome the fact that our town will be safe and will be more palatable for people to come into our town. And I personally, and I'm sure you will agree with me, I'm incredibly excited about the opportunity to close the High Street, which has been part of our neighbourhood development plan. And I really look forward to welcoming that and seeing how that develops. So that's all I have to say. I am happy to answer questions if you wish to ask them.
Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Kate, I'm very pleased to hear the results of that survey, Councillor. Apologies. I was just intrigued to know whether or not, while this survey was going off, whether more ideas were coming through from other businesses. The ones that I spoke to myself came up with a few, which I will send through to you. I just wondered whether other businesses were coming up with other suggestions, other ideas. I know that paramount in everybody's mind is the safety of residents, is the safety of shoppers, is the safety of visitors to our town, and to ensure that social distancing measures are in place. But there's also a lot who are looking at ways to improve the town, take the opportunity of the situation to put improvements of the town in on a permanent basis. Do we have any idea, Councillor Rolfe, on how permanent or how temporary these measures, such as closing High Street, will be?
Thank you, Councillor Alcock. The measures will be in place till at least the end of August, and hopefully a bit longer. But they are meant to be in place for the next month. Yes, a lot of ideas have come forward. Sadly, a lot of negative ideas have come forward for those businesses that have been very negative, but a lot of positive ideas have come through as well. And I really welcome, I think Councillor Frederick and I would really welcome, and Councillor Taylor, to hear those ideas. And I think more ideas will come forward when these measures, if these measures are put in place. So yes, I think we need to, as a council, to compile ideas and suggestions. But as I said in my email, and I will say again, that if these measures go ahead, there will be no tweaking at all. There'll be no changing of that scheme at all. Thank you.
Councillor Jenny Fradgley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to add that I have had a number of emails from people, residents of the town, supporting and actually giving extra ideas. I'll actually copy all these out. We'll actually go forward to whatever think tank might actually be able to make use of them, because some quite good ideas are actually emerging. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think obviously this is the scheme that's happening, and obviously not going to be any changes. I do think we need to bear in mind that an awful lot of our residents were told to shield until the end of July and have not been in and won't actually be coming into the town regularly until early August. And I think we need to bear in mind that the system is waiting to receive these additional people, and we really should be keeping an eye on how it works with the additional people coming out onto the street with the reduced pedestrian area, to ensure that it still works for the social distancing with the greater numbers of people. A lot of them obviously the more vulnerable members of our community, and are therefore perhaps more concerned about keeping social distancing.
Thank you. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, many thanks to Kate, Jenny and Kevin for doing a great deal of work in a very short space of time. A great deal owed by a great many to a very few, if I can. It does strike me that the end of August is really, bearing in mind, Kate, that you say that that's the earliest that this will be reviewed. It's not a long time frame. So I think all I would like to say is, and I'm sure there wouldn't be any disagreement with this, is that we really need to start formulating a strategy now, rather just to ensure that we're on the front foot, if at all possible, sounding out public opinion, sounding out the opinion of those businesses, and really making sure that we're on the front foot, as I say, and being proactive rather than reactive when it comes to any revisions that this plan will need. Just that really. But thanks really very much for all your hard work.
May I respond to that, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. We need to look forward. I think one of the restrictions on time could be cost, because by closing the high street, either end of the high street will need to be manned, physically manned, with the barriers, removing the barriers, putting the barriers back at certain times. The high street will be closed from 11 o'clock till 6 o'clock. So, and somebody has to pay that person or those two people money to do that. And I think the town clerk will be discussing with Julie Lewis at the District Council. That'll be probably on the agenda for tomorrow to look at costs. But yes, we need to look at it as we need to certainly look through what works and what doesn't work. And I'm sure, given the sensitivity of this entire project over the last few weeks, I'm sure the businesses will be the first people to tell us what is working and what isn't working. And I hope so the residents do as well. But the businesses will, I'm sure they will. Certainly those 97 who voted for everything to go.
Thank you. Councillor Cleave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just following up on what Councillor Curtis did say about obviously forward thinking, and also what Councillor Rolfe just said, that we do need to have feedback during this during this month from our residents as well as businesses, because as much as we want to attract visitors into the town, obviously to keep this town going, we also need locals to come into town. So I hope we're going to listen to everyone. Obviously, with the no tweaking, Councillor Rolfe, you said no tweaking at all once it's in, and this is in until the end of August. At the end of August, then will it be revisited?
No.
So
it'll have to stay. No, they will not do any more alterations at all.
Sorry, just yeah. So at the end of August, does that mean it goes, or will it be revisited to see as if is it still working, and therefore we'll keep it going?
I think it'll be yes. Is it working? Should it stay? I mean, you know, end of August is a long way away, and nobody knows what the COVID-19 is going to do. So I think a decision will be made about whether it continues to be in place.
May I just finish up by just saying, yes, a lot of hard work has gone into this. I know a lot of people and businesses didn't agree with it, many did, but these are unprecedented times, and we've been working with not knowing what it's going to be like in the next day, let alone the next week and month. So just again, I know a lot of hard work, so well done for those who have worked and adjusted everything accordingly. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I just add one more point, please? I did mention whether it was possible for the town council to endorse the town clerk putting a press statement out on our behalf.
I've still got a couple of people wanting to comment.
Oh, I do beg your pardon, sorry. I can't see the hands up.
It's okay. Councillor Ian Fradgley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given that one option has gained 57% of the vote and the other option obviously has gathered 43%, and I suspect the majority of this council, the town council, would be in favour of the 57%. Is there anything at all that we can do to make sure that this particular project goes forward? Because I'm getting quite concerned that there's a majority and they're not going to get what they voted for. Thank you.
Okay, I think that 128 people is minus the board ratification on Friday morning, the Business Improvement Board. So there's another 8 votes in the positive direction to add to that. Kev, may I ask Councillor Taylor to answer that, because he's been involved in this as well all day and all day yesterday with emails going backwards and forwards, and perhaps Councillor Taylor could take on that second question.
Certainly. I think from what Kate has already said, that there obviously there is a majority. There is the board votes to add to that majority, and in answer to what we can do, I think the main thing that we can do is ensure that whatever press release that happens in the morning, that we're fully supportive behind everyone else. I think collectively, maybe we could have. I think from what Councillor Curtis said, maybe we could have all got collectively on board with a stronger stay campaign and a safety campaign than we probably did. But I think at this moment in time, we've probably done all we possibly can. And let's hope, and I'm sure there is enough information from the votes, from other comments from residents that people have received. I think we have a strong enough force behind us now to ensure that we hopefully get that right decision.
Thank you. Councillor Voss.
Yes, I just be a bit cautious about saying there'll be no revisions. We'll wait to see what happens nationally. Recently and across the pandemic, we've seen some very late decisions by national government. So who knows what may happen within the next 31, 32 days. It could cause us to have to rethink again. And I would say that 57% seems quite a convincing majority, given the results of a recent national referendum. So, you know, let's be positive and buoyed by that figure. It certainly is not contestable. So I think that's well done.
Thank you. Councillor Curtis, you've still got your hand up. Is that just, it's an error? I thought it was. Councillor Taylor.
Councillor Voss, I think when we were discussing no more tweaks, I think obviously if we saw an increase in infection rate throughout the country or the region, then I'm pretty sure that people would be looking at a different situation completely. However, there were so many permutations originally requested by so many different people that it had to come down for this decision to two defined options. And it was made very clear with those two defined options that if we chose the revised one, there wouldn't be any adaptation again from that scheme. But if you're quite right, if the situation changes and the R rate increases, hopefully not, then I am sure that we would be looking at a different situation.
Thank you. There's no other hands up. I think one of the issues that we've had is that things have moved very quickly, and the opportunity for the town council to issue a statement in the press has been virtually nil. For either myself or the town clerk to issue a statement on behalf of the town council, then that decision needs to have been discussed by the town council, and we just haven't had the opportunity to do so.
The date for Lethington held is Tuesday, isn't it?
Sorry, Councillor Dyer, could you mute yourself, please?
Sorry, thank you.
We now have a clear vote, and we've been asked to endorse that vote. So as we are here this evening, it does give us the opportunity to actually vote on the decision and to give a clear statement to the town clerk that we are in favour of the modifications as outlined in the brief that we've seen. I'm sure none of us would have wanted the total removal of the scheme, and I think we might well have liked more barriers to be retained to ensure the safety and safe distancing. But we are where we are. The vote is for the modified scheme. Can I just ask you to vote with your green buttons to say that you are in support, and it will enable the town clerk to have a clear mandate for her discussion tomorrow and the issuing of a statement. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So can I leave that with you, town clerk, to put something together? Thank you. Item 13.6 is the implementation of TC Project 1, the town strategic partnership, and we are looking to appoint a town councillor representative on this working group, which has been deferred because of COVID, but we are looking to reinstate as soon as possible. Is there anything else you want to add on that, Town Clerk? Is that we've got nothing scheduled, have we? I think in the papers it doesn't make reference to Warwickshire County Council being on the panel, but I did think we did have a member agreed that would attend. Is that correct, Town Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, we've got Rachel Backenay, who is the officer, the lead officer at Warwickshire County Council for the communities, parishes.
Right. Okay. Thank you. In which case, do we have anybody, a nominee to sit on this panel? Anybody? Councillor Voss.
Yes, I'd like to put myself forward, please, as the Town Council's representative on the Town Centre Strategic Partnership, please.
Councillor Howe.
Yes, I'd like to propose Councillor Voss.
Thank you. Councillor Alcock.
May I second?
Sorry, Councillor Alcock, you've got your blue hand up. Are you?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was going to second. Sorry, everybody froze there for a moment. Yes, I would like to second Councillor Ross in the longest seconding ever. Everybody was frozen. So yes, I'd like to second that, please. Thank you.
In which case, all those in favour of Councillor Voss being our representative, green ticks, please. Thank you. It's unanimous. And on to item 13.7 is the appointment of a task and finish group to consider future town centre initiatives. Councillor Voss, can I ask you to lead on this, please?
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for voting for me as your representative on the Town Centre Strategic Partnership. Given the previous discussion as well, point prior, we've segued rather neatly into a proposal to set up a Town Centre Town Traffic Task and Finish Group. The current concerns over access and to town traffic management as a result of the changes put in place due to the consequences of COVID-19 have highlighted the need to take a fresh look at the town centre. The Neighbourhood Development Plan, which was voted for in the referendum in November 2018, has presented a strong vision which can and should be built on. I'm proposing the Town Council sets up a task and finish group with the specific remit of moving forward from the Neighbourhood Development Plan vision to developing a progressive, consensual, realistic plan for the medium to long term with emphasis on the following areas: sustainability, economic opportunity, social cohesion, and environmental responsibility. A paper and terms of reference have been prepared and circulated, and I would ask that members vote to support setting up this task and finish group. And I'll take any questions if there are any.
Please, anybody got any questions? Councillor Howe?
Yes, no, thank you for this, Councillor Voss. Is a very exciting group. When you say that things have moved on from the Neighbourhood Development Plan, do you mean the Neighbourhood Development Plan doesn't go far enough in its recommendations?
No,
Are we building upon it, or?
I think we build on it. The Neighbourhood Development Plan was a very strong vision, but what we've seen recently and the discussions and the toing and froing and the pros and cons and the ideas which were referred to in 13.5, which are coming forward, means that we can now build upon that with perhaps a clearer idea and able to put some substance and detail on it.
Thank you.
Councillor Lee.
Yeah, just to confirm what we're being asked to do. So obviously note the papers that have been provided for this item. Obviously one of the main features of this task and finish group is that we're looking to do, or the work is looking to complete in a relatively short time scale. So assuming that the council look to approve this task and finish group being set up, are we looking to set that up in this meeting as well?
I think we should be looking at, if members are happy, for them to put their names forward to be members of the group so we can move forward as quickly as possible.
In which case, shall I take this as two separate items? Firstly, can we vote on whether we approve the setting up of the task and finish group?
A seconder, do we need?
Have we got a?
We've got lots of seconds.
I've got, yeah, Councillor Curtis and Councillor Cleave, I can see. So, yeah, sorry, I was just, yeah. Right, so all those in favour of the task and finish group, can you press your green buttons, please? Thank you. Yeah, in which case, Councillor Voss, how many members would you like to sit on the working group? Oh, sorry.
Well,
no, sorry, Councillor Rolfe wants got a question. Sorry, Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you. Just to say, I have a slight nervousness that I don't want there to be any clash or repetitiveness between the strategic town partnership and this group. I'm just nervous about endless duplication. Well, because that happens amongst.
Yeah, no, if I can answer that.
Could I finish speaking, please? Thank you. So I just want people to be mindful of that it is a very short task and finish group that hopefully will feed into the strategic group and in a sense not clash and not duplicate. Yeah. If I may.
You may, and I think that's absolutely right. The last paragraph of the papers, the work undertaken by the new subgroup would be referred to the town centre strategic partnership through the town council's appointed representatives. And I think there are a lot of views coming in, many of them disparate, and it's time they were all pulled together so that we have a coherent plan with substance for the future, not for the short term, but for the medium to the long term. We take this opportunity when there's energy and interest. And then we bring in stakeholders. But I think it's important that, given the fact that we represent 30,000 people, give or take, that the town council takes a strong lead in this.
Thank you. Councillor Jenny Fradgley.
I mean, I see this very much as a very shortly focused, very focused group on detail that then actually puts that to the strategic plan, which is a much broader group. I don't think the strategic group is the group where you actually do this minute pulling together of all the ideas from the county, from locals, information that we're getting coming through at the moment from COVID-19 plans which have gone ahead in the vote. There's huge amount of information that needs to be looked at and organised, and we have to actually take a view, because we're the people that will be actually pushing those ideas forward, hopefully to the county, and actually looking for finances.
Thank you. Councillor Voss, how many members were you looking for to sit?
I think 6 to 7, I would suggest, from within the town council. And I'd also like to suggest that both councillors Fradgley and Rolfe, as county councillors, would be available on an invitation basis to give advice and support from their position as county councillors.
Could I ask any councillor who would like to sit on the task and finish group to raise their blue hand, please? I have got councillors Howe, Curtis, Coles, Lee and Taylor. Councillor Rolfe, your hand is still up, but I think you would be invited. You're not. No, you won't be on the. You won't be on it, but you'll be invited to attend as required as a county councillor.
Can I also say that I know that Councillor Folchik has moved off, probably lost connection, but I am aware of the fact that he expressed interest in being a member of the group as well.
And sorry, Councillor Dowling, have you now put your blue hand up? Yes. Sorry, right. So we've now got Councillors Howe, Curtis, Coles, Lee, Taylor, Dowling, possibly Foytek. Do we want to have a vote, or do you want to take it forward?
No, I think we should take it forward because we're going to be quite pressurised, and I appreciate that in the short term, not everyone may be able to attend every meeting. So I think to have more members and fewer members will be an advantage.
And I will attend.
And you're there as ex officio. Can
Yeah.
I just ask, and thank you everybody for that, that Town Clerk, I liaise with you to arrange a meeting soon as possible and clerking arrangements. So if I contact you tomorrow.
Will the meetings be during normal working hours?
Well, I think if we can arrange that as a possibility, given that most people have accessibility to Zoom and may or may not be, I don't want to prejudice anyone's working arrangements, but I think if possible, yes, but I appreciate that outside of working hours, clerking may not be as easy. We may have to self-clerk. I think I understand that correctly from the terms of reference, which are also on the papers. But if we talk tomorrow, can we pin that down?
The strategic, sorry, am I muted?
No.
The strategic group has part of their terms of reference is that they do meet during working hours.
Right. Well, we'll endeavour to do so. I think it would be prudent to do so.
Yeah.
If we can. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for supporting that. Let's give it a good crack, shall we?
Thank you. On to item 13.8, the Model Code of Conduct consultation by the Local Government Association. Town Clerk, do you want to lead on this, please?
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe, if I'm correct, and forgive me if I'm not, I think I sent this out to you some time before the papers went out, so that you had plenty of time to look at it and consider the new proposed code. As you know, we are members of the Society of Local Council Clerks, and they sent me an email, which I think is quite helpful if I could just read it to you, so you hear what they have to say.
Yes, please.
The model code is designed to be adopted by both principal authorities and local councils. The model code does not and cannot create sanctions for any breach. The power to do this rests with government, who, as yet, have not responded to the report. SLCC's work in pressing for the necessary legislative changes continues and is supported by our task force colleagues at the Association of Democratic Services and lawyers in local government, as well as those at NUP. The code is based on 12 obligations for councillors. It is SLCC's view that the current draft is too focused on principal authorities and fails to address the needs of local councils sufficiently. It needs detailed guidance specific to our sector for it to be useful and practical. In places, the model code implies powers for local councils that do not exist in law and could lead a local council into taking actions that are ultra vires. In addition, SLCC believes that the model code lacks ambition where it seeks to address poor behaviour by moving away from a discourse on respect to the use of the term civility. SLCC understands that the local government association's wider focus on civility in public life and welcomes it. However, this approach fails to address the long-standing and pervasive problem of a lack of respect between councillors and officers in local councils. This ranges from inappropriate challenge to pure bullying and is unacceptable in any modern workplace. SLCC agrees with sector partners that having one code that applies to local councils and their principal authorities provides the opportunity for consistency across the tiers and is easier for councillors and the public to understand. So that's what the Society of Local Council Clerks has submitted to the consultation. And I just thought it would be worth you hearing that, because that was not part of your papers. And it does seem to be in line with the National Association of Local Councils as well.
Thank you. Has anybody got any questions or issues they'd like to raise? Councillor Cleave.
As we are discussing whether we are going to adopt or at least consider the member code of conduct, I think it is important that we have one. What our clerk has just said, you know, what goes on between councillors and officers should never happen. Behaviour of councillors in general should be something that we should always look to be sort of above repute in a way. You know, the role of councillors in all tiers are a vital part of democracy. And when our residents vote for us as councillors, we're put in a position of trust, and therefore it's important that we are accountable for everything we do, our behaviours and responsibilities. Not just that, as us now, we want to set the bar high so that when people when we're looking for new councillors, whatever party that people want to come forward because they see it as a position of responsibility and respect. So I personally believe we should be looking to adopt this sort of model code of conduct.
Thank you. Councillor Voss.
Yeah. Can I have some advice from the town clerk? Because I noticed that in Appendix B, there's an item on registering of interest, which we all did as, particularly as new town councillors last year, and we had a particular view on open declaration. But I also note that having sent ours in and being able to evidence that, we never got any, or I certainly didn't get any acknowledgement of it. So I'm presuming it's held by the appropriate authority, and we just accept that. There was no sort of connection between what we sent and what we got fed back through the district council, presumably officer, whoever was responsible for that.
Yes, when you submitted your declarations, that the district council published those online.
But they didn't, because we asked specifically that they did not so do. If you remember, there was a concern that members of the family and similar would not want private and personal details, e.g. address, being declared. And there's nothing online that I've ever seen for myself, but I know it's gone, and it has gone. And technically, I think we should be updating it anyway. And some of the points I've seen are not quite, they've been improved and developed. So is it worth us doing it again and just pushing to have that confirmed?
Yes, if any of your situation changes or any declaration changes, you must update the district council within 28 days.
Thank you. Councillor Jenny Fradgley.
Could I just ask the town clerk, I just gather from what you just read out that this is still a work in progress and we haven't got the final document to approve of yet. Because what you read out, I think, was significantly different from what we've actually been looking at. And I was actually very encouraged by what you read out, because I think the terms, our code of conduct should be strengthened in all respects to give confidence to our residents. So I'm looking forward to how that goes forward. Do you have a time scale on that? When
yes, we're asked to respond to this consultation by the 17th of August. But why I read out the SLC, because they have submitted that. Yeah. So if we wanted to make a response, for example, we could say we agree with the principles exactly, but we would also concur with that perhaps they don't go far enough and they must be specific to our sector. That's what's so important.
That is what I would propose, because I thought that was the most significant thing that you actually read out. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes.
Oh, you've muted.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes. Just picking up on Councillor Cleeve's point, I absolutely agree that at a time when, and I'm not trying not to make any points here really, but at a time where there is such distrust of national government, I absolutely agree that we should be setting an example by agreeing to really the highest examples of public probity. Otherwise, we will lose the trust of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could ask the Town Clerk a question regarding this.
Yes,
Madam Town Clerk, we can vote on the principle of having a code of conduct, but we don't just have to accept what they send through. Am I right in thinking from the last time we did this that we can amend our own code of conduct to add additional points in? Because I do find the point that I don't believe it is robust enough covering each sector, because every single sector through from parish councils all the way up to Parliament, it's very different, and I do believe that we need one that is suitable to our position.
Yes. May I answer, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, sure.
If you recall, the last code of conduct that we looked at and actually adopted was the one put forward by the district council. So they put this code of conduct forward, and that's the one that we adopted with no amendments. But I noticed reading through the proposed code of conduct, bearing in mind this is still a consultation, that it can be amended to suit your particular council. Tweaks, because as you know, that one size does not fit all.
No.
But perhaps the majority of it will, but we just need to actually, I mean, as the SLCCC, as it stands, we could be ultra vires because it doesn't, that we haven't got the law behind us. Does that answer that? Does it, in other words, yes, we can.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I did get that, yes.
Town Clerk, can I ask a question, please, relating to the almost disciplinary action that is available against councillors if there is a serious breach? Is that part of the recommendations before us, or is that something extra that the Local Government Association were proposing that we should support?
No, that is before you.
It's what before you? Because I just think, well, I'm hoping that all councillors will agree that the Code of Conduct and the adoption of it is very important, but it carries very little weight if there's no sanctions available against the councillors who commit any serious breach. So that's a major step forward, I think, in my mind. Right, so if we, now then, going from the discussions, can I just paraphrase that? Well, do we have a recommendation? Councillor Jenny Fresley, because I think you were proposing slightly more than just adopting or approving the recommendations. You wanted to go a step further in your proposal, is that correct?
Yes, I would like to make reference to the extra information that the Town Clerk read out, which was actually firming up some of the recommendations going forward. I'd like to actually add those into our acceptance of the major of the main document.
Town Clerk, are you able to draft a proposal?
That would be fine. I would I'll add that to the response. I mean, from what I can gather from this discussion, you are all in favour of a more robust code of conduct as detailed before you, but that we add the fact that it needs to be absolutely specific to our sector.
Yeah, just as a point of clarification then, can we just make sure, can you use the green ticks to vote to say that we are in favour of the amended code of conduct?
Do you wish me to second, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I will second, Mr. Mayor.
unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you. So we can leave that with you, Town Clerk, to progress. Thank you. And item 13.9 is to consider the proposal to set up a small steering group to discuss the possibility of setting up a youth council. Can I ask Councillor Cleave to lead, please?
Thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I brought this forward. I have spoken recently to several different youth groups about basically they feel that they don't have a voice in this town. Therefore, having done a lot of research looking at other youth town councils and Stratford Youth Forum, which covers the entire district, we came up with the idea that of a youth town council, for a proposal for a youth town council, and have them have ideas that can make a difference to the lives of young people in the town. Well, we were all young once, and we do try to listen to young people. We know that obviously they have a lot of different ways of thinking and doing things. So the aim of a youth town council is to include Stratford-upon-Avon's young people in local government, give them a voice within the town, and the opportunity to develop and shape their community for the benefit of young people. But before we can start that, what we want to do is have a steering group involving several young people just to see how they would like to take this forward. There's no point us creating a packaged one already without their input. So what we're looking at is to first get that steering group with a few councillors and a group of young people, and many of whom already expressed an interest, to then see if there's enough interest and whether it would warrant having a youth town council. So it's just a steering group to start with, see if the interest is there from the youth themselves.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Cleave, I think it's a brilliant idea. I really do think it's something very positive for this town. And as you say, you know, as a mother of a teenager, I constantly hear, you don't hear anything I say, or you're not listening to me, and what do you mean I can't live on my phone? So I do think it's quite important that the youth today are listened to. So it's something I'm very much in favour of, and of talking to teenagers, usually, well, one of my own, other people when they happen to be online with Kerry, and it does seem to be a very, very positive suggestion for them. It was something that we used to have when I first joined the council. We used to have heads of the various high schools involved in events. It feels like 100 years ago now, but that sort of drifted away. So I'm very pleased to hear something is coming back for the children, well, for the youth, should I say, young adults. Councillor Cleave, on the actual youth council itself, how many members do you see being there?
Are you talking about, through you, Mr. Mayor, you're talking about us as adult councillors on there, or the young people?
Both, Councillor Cleave.
So I would, so for the young members, again, that's something I would like them to come forward with as a proposal. I mean, obviously we have 18 town councillors. Do we want 18 youths? Can we find 18 youths? Would that be too many? Again, this is something that we can talk to. We could potentially look at one per ward, one per group organisation. So one for the school, for CARES, one for Shottery, one for the high school, one for some of the uniformed organisations, different organisations. This is the sort of thing within the steering group that we'd like to get sort of nailed down, so to speak. So at the moment, we haven't got any numbers. It's what do they want? If we said, let's have one per ward, then we're suddenly dictating the terms. What I'm looking at is potentially getting them to make those sort of decisions themselves.
Thank you. I've not got any other blue hands. Is this two-step process, Councillor Cleave? One to actually vote on our approval of the council, and then a separate one asking for people who are willing to stand or sit alongside you on the panel. Is that the?
Yeah, we could do that. The other thing I would like to, if we get the approval of that, town clerk, if I could have a chat with you how we can take this forward for getting information maybe through the local press, through social media as well, to get the word out there. I have got people who will speak to other youths, but also doing that. May I just say, having spoken to several of the councillors, we do have quite a few with DBSs in place already, and I think that is an important thing we need to look at. So we do have 3. I myself am on the annual update, so I have a current DBS, and I have 3 others that have told me that they're DBS checked as well. So I think that is an important thing we need to consider.
Councillor Curtis.
Just to say, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to say, Jill, I'm also DBS checked. If that's useful.
For it's worth, I am as well, but there we go. Councillor Dyer. Unmute, Roy.
People from ATC or Sea Cadets or church, actually, they are also DBS checked. So it could be worth approaching them to see if that'd help to spread it away from just the council. What do you think? No.
Sure.
Do you want me to respond to that, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, the only adults that are going to be involved in this will be councillors. The rest will be youths, and obviously they don't need DBS.
Councillor Curtis, if you've got a blue hand up, I'm sure that's a mistake. Thank you. Right, in which case I'm going to assume that the nomination is from Councillor Cleave and the secondary is from Councillor Alcock, that we approve the proposal to set up a small steering group to discuss the possibility of setting up a youth council. Vote in green ticks, please. Thank you. It's unanimous. Councillor Cleave, how many councillors would you like to sit on the working party?
I would say just for now to keep it at a minimum so we don't scare the others off, but obviously it'd be nice to have some experienced councillors as well as some of us new ones on there. So I'm looking, in addition to myself, because hopefully you will allow me to sit on this, 3 others, no more than 3. And I have had 3 people come forward to request that. May I name them, or shall I?
Well, sorry, I'm just going to say, just anybody who's expressing an interest, I'm assuming has raised their blue hand. And at the moment, I've got councillors Howe, Councillor Alcock, Councillor Rolfe. Were they the 3 that you were expecting, Councillor? They were. In which case, on the basis that nobody else is putting themselves forward, can I suggest you progress using those 3? And myself, if I'm available somewhere along the line. Yeah. Thank you.
Just say, Mr. Mayor, I think you will be involved as Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah. Right, on to item 14, which is the written reports by representatives to outside bodies. This is to note the report. I'll just check, Councillor Howe, did you want to add anything to your written reports? No. Has anybody got any questions arising on the Fred Winter Centre? Councillor Alcock. No. Councillor Jenny Fradgley.
I didn't want to comment on this. I just wanted to say that I said that I would give a verbal report on Stratford in Bloom. I didn't do a written report on this. I think you're aware of some of the issues as well.
Yes. Right. I'll come to you as a separate item when we cover the written. So yeah. Can we just okay? We've noted the Fred Winter Centre again. Councillor Taylor tabled reports on Ping, the Market Forum, and BID. Councillor Taylor, is there anything you want to add?
The only thing I would like to add is about the Ping project, and we're currently desperately looking for a storage location in the waterside area. So if anyone can assist us, it would enable us to put the tables out on a more regular basis. because since COVID, we've lost some of our storage centres around the town. So it would be, if anybody knows of anyone who can help us, then it would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Sorry, slightly distracted by a request to add Councillor Dowling back into the meeting, but I can't see how to. Add him back in. Oh, you're right. He's coming in. Thank you. Right, Councillor.
Right, sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. My device went down, so I'm back in on my telephone just for the end of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Jenny Fradgley, do you want to give us an update on Stratford in Bloom?
Yes, may I just give a brief update? The long-serving chair and partner are actually leaving Stratford December, early 2021. So they will be actually leaving the organisation completely, which means that what is left behind is quite a rump of an organisation, and we need to attract new volunteers. I understand the Mayor and Steph Lester, the chair, have actually had photographs taken, and they've got an article in the Herald coming up asking for volunteers. It does sound quite stark that if we don't get people to work on it, it won't be in existence next year. So I think we are looking at a bit of a precipice. However, I'm working with Gina Lodge at the moment on application for grants, and if the company doesn't continue, I think at some point the town council needs to look at what we could possibly do to save just the floral decorations in the town if the company fails to attract new members. It is fairly serious at the moment. I think I would actually quite like to talk to the town clerk about it at some point with you, Mr. Mayor, to see where we go from in December if we don't get new volunteers.
May I just say that there's an article in Bridging the Gap as well, asking for volunteers. Yes. So it's in there.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to clarify that. So there's an article and picture going in Bridging the Gap, the next edition, and like I say, I will also use that similar article, and I'll approach the Herald. I think I need to go through the probably the editor just to make sure that it goes in, rather than hoping they'll publish it. So I probably need to have some direct.
I have approached the county council logistics officer for this area to have a look, and other sort of bodies. I do think all of us need to be keeping an eye out for anybody who might have admin ability and keen on gardening and keen on keeping, or particularly the flowers in the town. So if you come across somebody who's keen, please hook them in.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there is an alternative solution if we don't find the volunteers. But I think in the first instance, let's put the message out there that Stratford in Bloom is in crisis. It needs some additional volunteers, and depending on the feedback that we get, I think that's probably something that we can bring back to the next town council meeting, just to understand where we are and whether we need to have it, whether there are any other possible contingency plans that we could implement to safeguard it. And I'm sure we'd all be very sad to see the flowers disappear from the town.
Can I just briefly give an update on FOSS, Friends of Stratford Station? I've been much more fortunate there. I do have some new volunteers who are keen to actually help on station, so that project's going forward.
Thank you. Right. In which case, on to item 15. Has anybody got any ward reports on important issues that they want to bring forward? Councillor Jenny Fradgley, you're playing with your blue button there. No. Sorry, Councillor, sorry, you're muted.
There is a considerable amount of antisocial behaviour and drug taking in the area of the Firs and Scholars Lane in particular. The police are fully aware of what's going on there, so is Orbit. So hopefully some issues will be sorted out at some point. There have been a couple of arrests in the past there, but there are issues, there are still ongoing issues. So if anybody comes up with any information that anything that happens in that area, can they please use the 101 999 or Crime Stoppers? I have actually given a letter to all residents in that area with those numbers on, so that they can actually contact the police in the privacy of their own homes.
Thank you. Councillor Cleave.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Same issues as Councillor Fradgley in Hathaway Ward. There's certain areas, especially along the Ulster Road and Brookside Road, where there have been drug issues and antisocial behaviours that are affecting residents. So it's the same issues, and again, they've all been informed to call the appropriate either 999 if it is happening right there and then, or 101 if they're reporting something that they've seen previously or it's non-emergency. And I'm also at this point now looking to set up, hopefully within the areas of Hathaway Ward, a neighbourhood watch, not necessarily because of the drug issues, obviously, because residents need to take care of themselves first, but just because there are antisocial behaviours in the area. And lots of, when I did a ward walk the other day, lots of litter, and I think that has been an issue across the town, is litter. Unfortunately, Rubbish Friends haven't been able to do anything during COVID, so I think it would be something that maybe we should be considering ourselves, of how we can tackle that issue within our wards.
Thank you. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, just picking up Councillor Fradgley's comments. I've just during the meeting, this evening's meeting, just had an update that 2 suspected drug dealers were arrested in Evesham Place, pretty much right opposite my house, on Sunday. 30-year-old man from Stratford was arrested on suspicion of possession Class A drugs. And again, this is what is in a way more concerning. The search of a nearby property led to the arrest of a 16-year-old boy from West Bromwich on suspicion of being involved in supply. And I think there is a real concern that the cohort of people that has been housed by the district council within a very close proximity of each other is creating an additional problem that wasn't previously there. It's not good for the people who in that group who are vulnerable, and it is leading, and I can tell you this for a fact, to a number of dealers coming from outside the town, which is obviously a bad situation. We've been trying to deal with this for some months, but it's very, very slow moving. But I'd just like to thank Kate and Jenny for all the hard work I know they're putting into it.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Fradgley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The biggest problem I have had, and a number of reports from residents, and I know a number of other councils got the same thing, it's the noise and the speed of motorbikes and souped up cars, and nobody seems to be able to do anything about it. So we just have to sit on it and let it carry on. Has anybody else got any thoughts on how this can be dealt with?
Sorry, I didn't know it's button. There is a common problem nationally on this at the moment. I could tell you that I've spoken to friends in the West Midlands, in the Northwest and the Southwest, and they, in similar small English market towns, this seems to be a common problem at the moment. I'm not giving you a solution, I'm just saying it's not only in Stratford-upon-Avon.
Yeah. Yes, was that we did?
No, that wasn't what I wanted to mention and follow up on what Councillor Curtis was saying. Since number 1 Evesham Place has been closed down, and I appreciate that part of this is exacerbated due to COVID and housing vulnerable people. Do we know, can we find out, because I'm continually asked about what is happening with number 1 Evesham Place, which has been boarded up now for a considerable amount of time, and nobody seems to know. Is it being sold privately? Is it being converted? Is it going to be used again? So I don't know if we can find that out or how we can find out about it, but it'd be interesting to know, and a lot of people want to know the answer. Certainly residents in Evesham Place want to know the answer to that.
Councillor Alcock. No. Councillor Warren Howells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really just to say that it's much the same in Avenue Ward. I've had lots of reports of boy racers, flower pots being broken, hanging baskets being torn up, drugs everywhere. So I've literally joined the neighbourhood team myself, neighbourhood watch team myself. So it's just to reiterate what you said, it's a problem everywhere, really. Thank you.
Thank you. It was interesting to hear Councillor Curtin, because one of my sort of comments would be, we are asking the public to report things to the police, either 999 or 101. I think it's helpful to have feedback that there have been some successes, and that actually the public engagement in actually reporting it is having an effect. And I think we need to keep up the raising the profile of, raise the number is the way to make things happen and for the police to get involved. In which case, can we move on to item 16, Town Clerk's verbal report? Town Clerk, have you got anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This goes on from the email that I copied you all into yesterday about Stratford District Council's public spaces protection dog fouling order, which made me very excited, because we've been talking about dog poo for years, haven't we? And I was happily responding to say that we would, of course, support it. But the mayor made a very valid point, which in fact I had already put in my response, was it's all very well, but how is it going to be enforced? So I contacted them on the mayor's behalf and asked these questions. Mr. Mayor said, I'd be interested in knowing what additional steps are proposed to be introduced to support enforcement, and would this order make dog fouling more antisocial than general littering? And I've had a response back from the District Council. There are no proposals to provide additional enforcement for dog fouling. Indeed, in response to the impact of the pandemic, the Council is currently considering options for reducing environmental health resource and more generally across the Council. The new public space protection order is no different to the existing dog control order, other than a small increase in the fine. So I would imagine, unfortunately, that the dog poo will continue.
Yeah. It's one of those where you need some high profile convictions of some sort, or people being caught and fined, but it's one that we are very much in the hands of the District Council to enforce. Right. Okay, any comments on that? Councillor Rolfe?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam Town Clerk, I find that so sad, so unfortunate. I mean, if ever we need environment, it's at the moment. And I'm really quite sad that they're cutting back on that service, or potentially cutting back on that service. And perhaps those of us that are district councillors could perhaps try and ask questions, why and what the consequences of that cutback will be. Because yeah, it's just very sad to hear that.
Yeah. Councillor Alcock?
No, I agree with what Councillor Rolfe just said. It is very sad to hear it. and also with the sadness that they're cutting back on a vital service, is also the irritation, the frustration that they've just waved something under our nose and go, oh, look what you could have had. You actually could have had the thing you've been asking for years and years and years, but we're going to tease you slightly with it and actually say, we're going to do something, but it's not anything that's going to help you at all. And that is what is a problem at the moment. Maybe this is something that could come under the Stratford strategic plan with town hosts, town marshals, town council, district and county all working together, because it is a blight in every area of our town. Not just the tourist areas, but the residential areas, the school areas, the open parks. So maybe it is something that everybody could come together and work on, rather than just saying, oh, we think it's a great idea, and yes, we're going to decide to make it really, really hard, but we're not going to follow through with anything. So maybe we can lead on a strategic plan. Councillor Voss, I will send you an email.
Thank you. Councillor Dowling.
Yeah, it's not about this item. I'd just like to say a few words just before you finish the meeting.
Right. Yeah, I'll come back to you, Councillor Dowling. Yep.
Yeah.
Councillor Cleeve.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, with regards to the dog fouling, as a dog walker myself, I have my own dog. He's a big dog, so he does make a big mess. But obviously, I always carry bags with me, and that is something that it does make me cross when I see it laying around. Not just that, when people do bag them up, but still hang them in the tree, which is almost worse in a way, because the plastic, it's just worse. Is there? I have seen in places where, because we control or own, I believe, the dog poo bins. Am I correct in that? Thinking that, town clerk, that we own? It is the town council who have. I know we don't.
Yes, the district council's stance on this, though, is that they don't necessarily put in dog poo bins. They'll put in bins, because as long as it's double bagged, etc., it all goes to the same refuse. So it's more bins than dog bins. But obviously, dog bins are not as universally popular if you have one outside your house, for example.
No, may I just, so I have seen in places where people have they've made their own plastic bag holders just out of other empty plastic containers, sort of bottle bags and things, so where people can just leave bags, because that is one of the things that, if you are a dog owner, most responsible dog owners go with a poo bag with them. But whether we could leave some next to all the bins, maybe come up with something that we could leave some bags there as well, so that if people are caught short or their dogs are caught short, that there is something that they can have to help with that, just as a suggestion.
Councillor Ian Fradgley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm back on the dog poo trail. I have some incidents. One in particular in my ward. I approached the dog warden about a month ago, who said to me that he would come along and stick some signage up. I did have a look a few days ago. We still have no signage. So whether that will make an impact or not, I don't know. But there isn't a service being provided to deal with it, as far as I can see. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jenny Fradgley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, some time ago, we actually, it was the dog warden before this one. We had as town councillors, I think some of you older town councillors will remember, we had a massive campaign, and we actually met with the dog warden in all our areas. We arranged with them to be there very early in the morning, sort of 6:30, 7 o'clock, when the dog walkers were out. And we actually handed out leaflets and handed out dog poo bags. We actually did a dog poo awareness exercise. Whether that helped or not, I don't know, but it did raise the profile as far as the town council was concerned. And I do think we need to be looking at perhaps some better signage as well, and possible possibly free dog poo bags on some of the more soiled places. Something to talk to the dog warden about, I think.
Thank you. Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you. I had a situation. Oh, I've turned my video off. Hang on. I had a situation in my ward, and I did ask if I could have some in a private. It was in a play area, children's play area, where a person was persistently taking their dog in there. And the district council don't have any signs saying no dogs allowed, which surprised me. But I did get some of these. If you can see these, yep. And there's a £1,000 sign, £1,000 fine. I put up 4 of these signs in one small play area, and the man hasn't been seen since. So, and there's thousands of these at the district council. So maybe that's a very, very good first step.
That's very interesting, Councillor Rolfe. I think there would be a lot of take up of putting signs up somewhere. I think we all know places where it's a bit of an issue. So if you could make it.
Would you like me to ask Phil Rafferty at the district council for maybe, I don't know, 50 to 100 of these put into the town hall, and people can pick up some as and when they need them?
Would be a fantastic. It's the town hall library. Can I just check what are they made of? Are they and how would they?
It's a sticker. It peels off.
It's a sticker, so it would need to be stuck on somewhere.
And once it goes on anything, believe me, it doesn't come off.
Right.
And I also agree with Councillor Howell about the similar to a "Don't Be a Tosser" campaign, which is the campaign. Seriously, I mean, I think we should perhaps change the wording of this. But meanwhile, I will certainly ask for 100 to be put into the town.
Right. Sorry, slightly naive question. Are there any constraints on where we can put them?
I wasn't asked. I just put them.
You just put them. No, I just it's
just fairly safely in nobody's sight line. Yeah. Just stick them around.
Okay, thank you. Town Clerk, was there anything else you wanted to add to your report?
No. I haven't anything else. I don't know whether the Deputy Town Clerk has.
He might have. Deputy Town Clerk. Unmute, please.
Thank you. Sorry. It's just, I believe members are aware, but the repairs to the Garden Remembrance Wall have now been completed. I know that's been a long outstanding issue, but the good news is that was all finished off at the start of this week.
Yeah, great.
Please ask that Councillor Lee doesn't go anywhere near that Garden Remembrance Wall ever again.
Right, just before we conclude the meeting then, Councillor Dowling, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just on behalf of the family, thank you all for the wonderful messages about the loss of tests. I know Charles was particularly pleased with the mayor and former mayors who formed a guard of honour at the cemetery. And I'd like to thank you all and apologise for all those who couldn't come to the wake because of social distancing, and say that at some time in the future we will be having a reception, and we hope you'll all come. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Dowling. In which case, can I end the meeting and say that the next meeting is on the 29th of September, assuming current restrictions continue. That will be a virtual meeting starting at 6 o'clock. Otherwise, we'll be back in the town hall at 6:30, but I'm expecting it to be a virtual meeting at 6 o'clock. If we can stop the YouTube recording.